is what happens when you don't get the reaction that you expect. And that's kind of how our reading is introduced. The action that is identified is that they first played festive tunes, but nobody danced. And then they switched styles and they sang songs of pain, but there was no mourning. Their action, the music, did not result in the expected reaction. So as I began to reflect on this passage, I want to suggest that the text is inviting us to address not just action and reaction, but rather proper action or effective action or faithful action, however you want to say it. So what is essentially being raised here is not about the expected reaction from those who hear the wide range of music, but rather on those playing the tunes. It is their lack of proper action that draws us into this text. You see, they acted in ordinary and routine manners as if John the Baptist and Jesus were just like everyone else that passed along their ancestral highway. But their ordinary and routine music, that action, is not enough, nor will it be ever enough. Something new is required. Discipleship expects something more, something different, some new things. The old music, the old ways aren't effective any longer. So I'm going to leave that point and move on to what comes next in the text. And what follows the point we just heard, that action for action's sake is not effective action, and that discipleship requires something more, something new, is a few sentences about Jesus, about John the Baptist that Jesus hears in the crowd, that they say that he has a demon, that John the Baptist is demon-possessed. And then they talk about Jesus, who they say is a glutton and a drunkard who eats with sinners. So it's always good to throw labels at people, and that's a great strategy and one that might even work. And we're hearing a lot of that these days. But calling people names is deflection. And it only works for those who want to believe what they hear. A label is a name, a word, a phrase used to classify or categorize a person or a thing. Labels are often used in the negative and are often inaccurate. An assumption is something that is accepted as true before there is any proof that it is so. And a stereotype is an inaccurate assumption made about all the members of a particular group. So I could go on and on and on about the use of labels and assumptions and stereotypes in today's society, and I probably should be strong enough not to worry about offending anyone. So let me say it this way. We just need to stop calling people names. We need to stop labeling them. We don't have to call people names to make ourselves feel more important or better. We don't have to choose to do that to others. And more importantly, we don't have to do that to ourselves, because we are made in the image and likeness of God. All are made in the image and likeness of God, and that's core. So to assume that John has a demon and that Jesus is a glutton and a drunkard is categorically wrong, and is equally wrong for us to do the same to others. So how about that for being so bold and unoffending? But perhaps the point is made. The text begins with these 2 points. The first is ordinary and routine action will never be enough, and discipleship expects and requires new action. And the second point is deflection doesn't work. And calling people by names doesn't work. It's not good for the souls. And disciples of Christ know who they are following and what that means. Now, before we move on, I'm just going to get a little drink of water here. We skip a few passages in our reading. What we don't read in verses 20 through 24 is Jesus now affirming the significance of John the Baptist. And then he briefly tells about the lack of faith from those who experienced his power when he went into their town. So we re-enter the text now in verse 25. And as I tarry with these verses, I realize that perhaps the heart of what is being presented is this notion of comprehension. To comprehend means to take in, to take hold of, to siege. And the text says that for some it remains hidden, and for others it is revealed. And so notice the contrast between the wise and the intelligent who don't comprehend, take it in, while it is revealed to those who are called infants. Now, the word infants refers to the helpless or foolish ones who have neither the intellect for learning and understanding, nor the experience for any wisdom. So the point is clear. The ones who are supposed to comprehend are the ones who don't get it, while the ones who do get it are the ones who aren't supposed to. So the question for the listener, which is not actually asked, but surely it's implied, is not so much which side are you on, but which side do you want to be on? Which side do you choose to be on? Do you want to be on the side of the rich and the famous, those who have power and prestige? Or do you want to choose a different way, God's new way? And for us, that question gets nuanced a bit. How can we better choose God's way while surrounded in our wealth and privilege? So what is it that some get and others don't understand? What is it that the wise and the intelligent don't comprehend while it is revealed to those who are called infants? So it appears to me that the it equates to the values, the attitudes, the perception, and the orientation of God's way. It refers to what God is like. The it is living the more excellent way, or living worthy of your calling, or, as I say, living more Christ-like. That's what I believe the it is in this passage. Some get it. Some get Christ-like living, while for others, Christ-like living remains hidden. Now, without being cavalier, I'll suggest that it's most likely about our priorities. It's about what we choose to do, how we choose to live our lives every day. And what is hidden and what is revealed is not so mysterious. You don't have to be an Erasmus or a Fulbright scholar or get a degree from Rensselaer Polytech Institute. What is being offered is the better way to live. And you get to choose. You get to choose if that's going to be the path for you. Now, let me say that one of the greatest things about living in this country, and I know that's probably a statement of privilege, but we who gather as the beloved of Pine Shores, we get to choose what's most important. We get to choose what we believe in or not. We get to choose how to live out our life. We get to choose how to invest our money and how to spend our resources, how to engage in cultural norms and mores. Perhaps that is not so true for others, which probably warrant conversation regarding inequity and injustice, and maybe that needs to be a higher priority for people of faith like us. But the truth is, for us, we get to choose our priorities in the path which points us toward Christ-like living, or sometimes points us there or points us there when it suits us best. But still, we get to choose it. So with that in mind, why do we believe the it matters? So why do we actually care what God is like? And why do we choose the values and attitudes and perception and the orientation of God's way? Why is Christ-like living a priority for us? And those are foundational questions. And the answers are in the choices that we make day in and day out. We transition in now to the final section of our reading, and the words sound familiar. We heard Cindy read them. Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I wondered way too long why these words are here. Why speak these words now? And what is the message for us to hold? So perhaps the answer is simply choosing to live more Christ-like will make our load heavy. And that's what I'm thinking. All those folks out there witnessing to the injustice and inequality of our society have to be wary. All those folks who are supporting food banks have to wonder. All those folks who choose to be kind and loving to those on the fringes have to feel the burden of being Christ-like. For them, for us, Jesus promises rest. And interestingly, the word rest can also be translated as refreshment. Jesus doesn't promise that Christ-like living won't impact us or cost us something. He doesn't promise that the problems will be solved. He promises us refreshment. Jesus offers the act of refreshing, which means literally to give new strength, to relieve after fatigue. So when we choose to make Christ-like living a priority, Jesus promises us new strength, always new strength. And that is good news. So let me finish up with this notion of the yoke. The yoke is part of that harness that used to pull a cart or plow a field or mill a beam. It's an instrument by which animals are guided to be most effective. And William Barclay tells a beautiful legend, a story that comes from the early centuries of Christianity, is not in the Bible. And the legend is that Jesus made yokes. I mean, he was actually a carpenter. And he could have very easily made yokes for the farmers in his village. So the legend has it that he made the best yokes around, and people came from miles and miles just to buy one of his yokes. The Greek word for easy, my yoke is easy, can also be translated well-fitting. So the legend says there was a sign over Jesus' workshop that read, "My yokes fit just right." Jesus' yoke provides a useful structure, a pathway to be guided into newness. So here's what we invite you to ponder. Discipleship expects something more, something different, some new things in your life. Calling people's name, labeling them is only the deflection, and it doesn't work because all of us are made in the image of God. Now, some get Christ-like living, while others, it remains hidden, but you get to choose. And if you choose to live more Christ-like, Jesus' promise to you is refreshment, a continued strength in your journey. Jesus provides each of us a faithful way to live. His yoke fits just right. Let us pray. Holy God, thank you for your word, and now we ask that you let it work in us. Let your Spirit work in us so that we can better reflect who you are and how we can love each other more because we have chosen to live the better way. For we do pray. Amen.